The Unwanted Mother. A tale of struggle, survival, and revenge. She was born into a world that never wanted her. Unlike other dogs, she wasn't beautiful. Her body was frail, her fur rough, and her face covered in scars. She lived in a house where she was merely tolerated, given scraps to eat, but never love. The world mocked her, other dogs avoided her, and people looked at her with disgust. Who would keep such an ugly dog? They whispered. But in the dark alleys of the city, she met a stray dog who had also been abandoned. He didn't laugh at her. One night, when she was heartbroken, she found comfort in his presence. By morning, he was gone. A few days later, she felt a change in her body. She was pregnant. Fear gripped her heart. If the world never accepted her, how would it accept her children? The people in her house mocked her. "We won't take care of your ugly pups," they sneered. Then came the day she gave birth. 14 puppies. When she looked at them, her heart trembled. They were all hideous except one. One was beautiful, like an angel. But fate had played another cruel joke on her. Every single one of them was blind, exile, and a painful journey. Her owners threw her and her puppies out of the house. "We can't afford to feed these cursed creatures," they shouted and slammed the door shut forever. Now, she was homeless, wandering the streets with her blind children, searching for help. But wherever she went, people turned away in disgust. Who would take in such strange puppies? But to her, they weren't ugly. They were her children, a battle of life and death. She roamed the cities, searching for a kind soul. She had heard that in some countries, blindness could be treated. If only I could take my puppies there, she thought. But how could a stray dog carry so many blind puppies across the seas? Time passed, and hunger consumed them. People threw stones at them, other animals attacked them, and the lack of food made them weaker by the day. Then came the biggest heartbreak. One night, she woke up to find that her most beautiful puppy was missing. A world of cruelty. She sniffed his scent and followed it to the darkest alleys of the city, where cruel humans trafficked rare animals. She broke into a secret lab, where caged animals whimpered in fear. In a far corner, her puppy shivered in terror. She tried to break the cage, but humans were stronger. They captured her and threw her into a prison. The plan to escape. Here, she met other captive animals, those who had suffered under human cruelty. An old police dog, once brave, whispered, "No one escapes from here." But she refused to give up. "My children are waiting for me," she growled. The humans laughed. "You're nothing. No one will save you." But they were wrong. She observed everything, memorized the guards' movements, and prepared the other animals. Then one night, they attacked. The bloodiest battle. The animals broke free, launching themselves at the guards. Fire, smoke, screams. She found her puppy, wounded but alive, carried him in her mouth, and ran through the flames. Yet another loss. But as she reached safety, she realized that some of her puppies were still missing. Despair consumed her. But then, in the darkness, a familiar voice echoed their father had returned. And he wasn't alone. The war for revolution. He had brought an army of wild dogs with him. "We will find them," he vowed. Now, this was no longer just a mother's fight. It was a war for every animal that had ever suffered at the hands of humans. One by one, they tracked down the cruel captors, destroyed secret labs, and freed imprisoned animals. The world, which once looked down on her, now feared her. The final battle. When she finally stood before the last villain, the man who had taken her puppies, he smirked. "You think you've won." But this time, she wasn't alone. Behind her stood every animal she had freed. With a deafening roar, they attacked. And when the dust settled, the last fortress of cruelty was nothing but ruins. From a mother to a legend. She had saved her children, but now, she was no longer just a mother. She was a savior. A sanctuary was built where every abandoned, unwanted animal could live in safety. The one whom the world once saw as ugly and worthless was now a guardian. The world thought she was nothing. But now, the world knew her as a legend. The war wasn't over yet. The world called her a legend, but was everything truly over? No. The roots of cruelty ran deep, and enemies always return with new faces. A darker threat emerges. The day she dreamed of a peaceful life with her children, a horrifying truth was revealed. The puppies who had been captured weren't just imprisoned. They had been experimented on. They were no longer just blind. Their bodies bore deep scars. Scientists had tested cruel medicines on them, destroying them from the inside. And behind these experiments wasn't just a few greedy businessmen, was an entire international network profiting from animal cruelty. This wasn't just a fight anymore. It was a revolution. The Emperor of Darkness. She saw her children's pain and wept tears of blood. I saved them, but they are still suffering. At that moment, she made a decision. She wouldn't just fight for her family. She would fight for every animal that had ever been tortured. But this time, the enemy was even more powerful. At the top of the network sat a man known as the Dark Emperor, a man with money, an army, and loyal followers around the world. He had the most advanced technology, secret labs, and scientists who turned animals into soulless weapons. And the most terrifying part, he had created a new army, the Shadow Dogs. These were once normal animals, now turned into experiments that felt no pain, saw no light, and knew no mercy. They were trained to kill their own kind. One last dangerous mission. She knew that this time, fighting wasn't enough. She had to reach the heart of the enemy, where it all began. But to do that, she had to travel to the world's most dangerous and forbidden places. Through jungles, deserts, and frozen wastelands where the Dark Emperor's labs were hidden. This was an impossible mission, but she knew that if she stopped, another mother would lose her children. This was no longer a battle for revenge, was a battle for justice. The final war against the Shadow Dogs. When she and her allies finally reached the Dark Emperor's last fortress, what they saw was terrifying. Hundreds of Shadow Dogs stood ready, merciless, unstoppable, and deadly. But she didn't flinch. Because now, she wasn't just an ordinary dog anymore. She was the warrior who had stolen her children back from death itself. A brutal war erupted. Blood, dust, fire, and roars of fury. This wasn't just a battle. This was a war. And in this war, there was no mercy. The ultimate sacrifice. She fought fiercely, took down countless enemies, and finally stood face to face with the Dark Emperor. He smirked. You think you've won. But this time, he was wrong. Because behind her stood every animal she had ever saved. And with a final roar, the last fortress of cruelty collapsed into ashes. And then, when the smoke cleared, the world had awakened to a new reality. The empire of cruelty was gone forever. But the biggest question remained. Did she survive the war? Or did she give her life to save her children? Did the world remember her as a mother, or as a legend? That was a question history would answer for centuries. Because she was not just a mother. She was the mother who changed the world.